Hello guys, and welcome to my channel. I am a new slime anime YouTuber. If you like this content, please consider subscribing and clicking that bell notification icon so I can continue uploading this kind of content. This video is the part 2 of chapter 1 of volume 19 of light novel. So without further ado, let's get started. Oh, Benimaru-kun. He was so happy to be here that I could not even get worried about him. There was no use worrying about things now. I decided to let things happen as they will.
I didn't expect to have to fight here, but it will save me a lot of trouble.
That's my line.
I responded and drew my sword. I'm going to do it. I'm seriously going to do it. Michael is difficult to defeat because he has castle guard, but fortunately, he is not here. I wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to take out Feldway alone. And I am the type of person who does not hesitate once my decision has been made. In a drawn-out battle, there is no such thing as interruptions. In such a case, you should decide the game with a killing blow. That's right, I had prepared it for such a situation. In all times and places, it was the thing that all shounen manga protagonists had, the sure kill technique.
Imaginary blade.
If someone were to ask what the strongest sword technique against an individual was, the answer would be obvious. It was the melt slash, which could even slice through the spirit. Then, if someone were to ask what the best sword technique against an individual was, the answer would be the Abro Hyaka Ryuren. Combining both of these characteristics was Benimaru's special move, that Abro Kokyun Hyaka Ryuren, which can be considered his sure kill technique. This sword art was the highest form of the technique, but with the ultimate skill added to increase its power. Therefore, its power had been raised to the realm of shattering the spirit, making it comparable to the melt slash technique. There is no doubt that it was the strongest in terms of both power and skill. And then, I had a thought. I can't lose to Benimaru, you know. So I asked Sila-san to come up with a useful sure kill technique. Of course, I also gave my own opinion. I asked it to use turn null, which I still had a difficult time understanding even after it was explained to me, and to make it more powerful. That is how the imaginary blade was born. Rather than slashing through the spirit, this technique eats it. It's the main characteristic of this technique. Because it eats the target and throws it into imaginary space, it has a broken performance that is virtually impossible to defend against. The only effective way to counter this is to avoid it. Even if it is caught with a sword, because it has a one-hit kill effect, the battle ends immediately. One of my aesthetics was that a sure kill technique should be a sure kill technique. It's a matter of course for my friends that the second time was not the charm. If a technique is shown even once, the opponent will take countermeasures, so the best thing to do is to not show anyone your sure kill technique until it's time for the actual performance. Well, there was also a way to deal with that using parallel existence like Velgrund, but when it came to a battle between high-ranking spiritual life forms, the main focus was the scramble for energy. In other words, the one who exhausted their opponent first was the winner. Although it was no longer an insta kill, it was still a terrific sure kill move. At this stage of the battle, I generously revealed my sure kill technique with a strong will to kill Feldway on the spot. And yet, even then the space made a screeching noise, and my sword was caught. I could feel Seal-sen's surprise. I suppose that made sense. I was surprised too.
No way, to think that the jinx that Master feared would be proven true.
Jink?
Yes. It's a shonen manga golden rule that if you use your sure kill technique as the first move, it will be blocked.
I couldn't help but burst out laughing in this serious situation. No, did I say that? You're right, I did say something like that. But there's no way, right? Phew, let's just forget it. These things just happen. He had caught the sword easily as if it were a joke, and it seemed to have upset him a bit. I switched my mind and focused on Feldway. Seal-san had already started investigating the cause of the blockage before I did. It would be pointless to attack again until the results were out, but I needed to pretend that I didn't care about that. I decided to bluff my way into a conversation with Feldway.
Wow, you blocked that really well.
Pretending that I wasn't upset inside, I slashed at him and tried to talk to him. I thought that I would be ignored, but he unexpectedly responded to me.
When I think about how attached the Black King, Noir, is to you, I don't feel threatened at all.
He's got an annoying way of saying things. I don't really care about being compared to Diablo, but to think that he didn't even bother with my new sure kill technique.
No, it's unnatural. I don't think there is anyone who wouldn't feel threatened by it. The only person I can think of is Michael, who is protected by the castle guard.
You say that, but in reality, it didn't work at all. At this rate, even the Abyss Annihilation, which I learned from watching Kara in the Labyrinth, might not work. Feldway's sword appeared to be mythical grade, and Imaginary Blade did not work either. Of course, that meant that the backwards compatible melt slash would be useless as well. In that case, one might think that slashing at the body would be enough, but this was not so easy. Because this Feldway guy was quite skilled. When I crossed swords with him, I felt that Feldway's abilities were considerable. He was as good as or better than me in terms of pure swordsmanship alone. I'd say that he was on par with Rimuru. Since I had become a true dragon race, my physical abilities had increased greatly. It was not a metaphor, but I was now able to move several times faster than before. In addition, I thought that my skill with the sword had also improved, but I still couldn't get to Feldway. In my case, I was able to deal with it because I had been cheating in many ways and could even ask Seal-sen to take my place if I had to, but I really felt that I had no chance in a fair and serious fight. In such a situation, the best thing to do was to switch to using magic attacks, which swords could not receive. However, large-scale magic would cause a lot of damage to Leon's kingdom. So, the only other option was to use magic for individuals. The Abyss Annihilation that I just mentioned had a destructive power that could affect the entire planet, so it couldn't be used anyway. However, I used it as an example because it was one of the highest classes of magic in terms of power. When it came to anti-personnel magic, I couldn't really think of anything that could surpass it. Disintegration was barely comparable to it, and anything else would just be guessing. The simple anti-personnel nuclear magic, nuclear cannon, was not nearly as powerful as disintegration. Even if an ultimate skill was used to increase the power, it could be dealt with if the opponent also had an ultimate skill. Even without it, there was no way to make it hit. Fortunately, Feldway was keeping a wait-and-see attitude. If he started to fight back, I wouldn't be able to afford it. At the moment, it seemed that the best thing to do was to try to find a way out of the situation through conversation. I started talking so as not to let him know how irritated I was.
I'm just a harmless slime. It's only natural that I don't seem like a threat.
You're talking out of your ass. That's the kind of thing that makes you seem just like master and slave.
That doesn't make you happy?
Well, you're just a hindrance to me, so I have no reason to be pleased. If that makes you uncomfortable, then that's just a bonus.
I thought he would just ignore me, but surprisingly, the conversation continued. That made this all the more disappointing. If I couldn't communicate with the other party, defeating them with no hesitation became much easier. Well, I was currently in the middle of searching for a successful strategy, so I didn't have the time to think about it from a different perspective anyway. That said, I was still curious. Why wasn't Feldway fighting back? It was convenient for me, but if we didn't do something, we'd end up in an endless repetition of moves. I was using turn null, but it was not as fatiguing because it was an absorptive rather than a releasing system. However, the same was true for Feldway, who was not receiving damage. Feldway seemed to be defending himself with some kind of skill, but since he was only defending himself, the fatigue appeared to be minor. One strategy was to use a sword technique that Feldway could not catch. To be perfectly honest, I had another secret technique up my sleeve. It was an improved version of Benimaru and Kara's Hayakuriren, and could not be used without Seal-sen's full support. I was hesitant to use it because it was a technique that exceeded my current skill level and made me feel like I was cheating. But now was not the time for such things, and I considered using it when the opportunity presented itself, but I just couldn't picture it succeeding. There was something ominous about it all. It seemed that Seal-sen agreed with me, and I decided to give priority to finding out Feldway's secrets for now. That's why we were currently in an indefinite battle, but when I thought about it more deeply, it was also a good time to calmly check the other battle situations. I was also concerned about the safety of the others. While keeping my eyes on Feldway, I focused on my friends. Benimaru was the one I was worried about. His opponent seemed superior in all aspects, so I tried to observe the situation with universal perception without looking at him.